The morning sun cast long shadows across Windsor Castle's ancient stones as a secret that had been whispered in palace corridors for weeks was about to unfold before the world. What appeared to be a simple Easter celebration would become a defining moment that revealed the true strength of the British royal family during one of their most challenging periods in recent history. Behind the perfectly orchestrated public appearance lay months of careful planning, personal struggles, and a determination to show unity when the monarchy needed it most. This is the untold story of how Kate and William's arrival at Windsor for Easter 2024 became far more than a religious observance. It became a powerful statement of resilience, tradition, and hope that would resonate far beyond the castle walls. As the royal car approached the chapel gates, neither Kate nor William could have imagined how this single day would change everything, touching the hearts of millions and setting the stage for a new chapter in their royal journey. The cameras were ready, the crowds were waiting, but the real story was just beginning to unfold. The first rays of dawn crept through the heavy curtains of Adelaide Cottage as Catherine, Princess of Wales, slowly opened her eyes on what would become one of the most significant Easter Sundays of her royal life. The cottage, their private sanctuary away from the constant glare of public attention, felt unusually quiet that morning. Even the usual chorus of birds seemed to understand the weight of the day ahead. Kate had been awake for most of the night, her mind racing with thoughts about the public appearance that lay before them. It had been months since she had been seen in public, and the speculation surrounding her absence had reached fever pitch. The world had been watching, waiting, and wondering about her health, her marriage, and her future role in the monarchy. Today would be the day she stepped back into the spotlight, not just as a royal, but as a woman who had faced her greatest challenge yet. The bathroom mirror reflected a face that had seen struggle, but also showed the quiet determination that had become Kate's trademark. The past few months had tested her in ways she never could have imagined when she first stepped into royal life. The chemotherapy treatments had taken their toll, leaving her feeling vulnerable and uncertain about her body's response to the demanding schedule that royal life required. As she moved through her morning routine, each step deliberate and measured, Kate thought about the children. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis had been her anchor through the darkest days. Their innocent questions about why Mummy was tired, their gentle hugs when she felt weak, and their unwavering love had given her strength when she felt like she had none left to give. William had already been up for an hour, quietly making phone calls to the security team and reviewing the day's schedule one final time. He understood the magnitude of what his wife was about to do. This wasn't just about attending Easter service. It was about showing the world that the Princess of Wales was strong, that their family was united, and that the monarchy would continue to serve with dignity despite personal challenges. The decision to attend the Easter service had not been made lightly. For weeks, palace advisors had debated whether it was too soon, whether Kate was ready for the intense scrutiny that would follow. But Kate herself had been adamant. She felt called to be there, not just for the royal family, but for all the people who had sent letters, flowers, and prayers during her treatment. She wanted them to see that their support had not been in vain. In the children's rooms, the sounds of Easter morning excitement filled the air. Charlotte was already dressed in her carefully chosen outfit, a pale blue dress that complemented her mother's planned ensemble. The young princess had insisted on wearing her favorite pearl earrings, the ones that made her feel grown up and special. She understood, in the way that children often do, that today was important for Mummy. George, now 11 and increasingly aware of his future role, had chosen his clothes with unusual care. He had watched his parents over the past months, seeing the strain they tried to hide, understanding more than they perhaps realized about the challenges they were facing. Today felt like a chance to stand together as a family, to show the world that they were strong. Louis, the youngest at 6, was simply excited about Easter. He had been asking about chocolate eggs for days and was thrilled about the prospect of seeing his cousins and grandparents. His innocent joy provided a lightness that the family desperately needed, a reminder that beyond the royal duties and public expectations, They were simply a family celebrating a holy day together. The wardrobe team had arrived early, bringing with them the carefully selected outfits that had been planned weeks in advance. Kate's ensemble had been chosen to send multiple messages. The deep navy coat dress was both elegant and respectful, appropriate for the solemn nature of the religious service. The color had been specifically chosen to photograph, well, to convey stability and strength. Every detail, from the pearl earrings to the subtle makeup, had been considered and reconsidered. As Kate dressed, she thought about all the women who had worn similar clothes to similar events over the decades. She thought about Queen Elizabeth, who had attended countless Easter services throughout her reign, always presenting a picture of dignity and duty regardless of personal circumstances. She thought about Diana, who had navigated her own challenges in the public eye, and about Camilla, who had found her place in the royal family through patience and perseverance. The breakfast table at Adelaide Cottage was unusually formal that morning. Usually, Easter breakfast was a relaxed affair with chocolate eggs and casual conversation. But today, there was an undercurrent of nervous energy that even the children could sense. William kept checking his phone for updates from the security team, while Kate picked at her food, her stomach too nervous to handle much. Outside, the early morning mist was beginning to lift from the Windsor grounds. The ancient castle stood majestically against the brightening sky, its towers and walls holding centuries of royal history. Somewhere within those walls, other members of the royal family were also preparing for the day ahead, each understanding their role in what was about to unfold. The drive to Windsor Castle would be short, but it felt like a journey across an ocean of uncertainty. Kate knew that the moment she stepped out of the car, every gesture, every expression, every step would be analyzed and interpreted by millions of people around the world. The pressure was immense, but so was her determination to do her duty with grace. As the family gathered in the hallway of Adelaide Cottage, ready to leave for what would become one of the most watched royal appearances in recent memory, Kate took a deep breath and reached for William's hand. Together, they were about to face the world, not just as the Prince and Princess of Wales, but as a couple who had weathered a storm and emerged stronger on the other side. The car was waiting outside, its engine running quietly in the morning air. The security team was in position, the route was clear, and the world was waiting. As they walked toward the vehicle that would carry them to Windsor Castle, Kate felt a sense of peace settle over her. Whatever happened next, they would face it together, as a family, with dignity and grace. The journey to Windsor had begun, but this was about much more than a simple car ride. This was the beginning of a new chapter in their royal story, one that would show the world what true strength looked like when faced with adversity. The Easter celebration was about to become something far more significant than anyone could have imagined. The royal convoy moved through the quiet streets leading to Windsor Castle with practiced precision, each vehicle maintaining its designated position in the carefully choreographed procession. Inside the lead car, Kate gazed out at the familiar landscape that had become so much more meaningful to her over the past months. Every tree, every building, every stretch of road held memories of a time when life felt simpler, when royal duties felt manageable, when her biggest concern was ensuring the children finished their homework on time. William's hand found hers as they approached the first security checkpoint. His touch was warm and reassuring, a silent reminder that they had made it this far together and would continue to do so. The past months had tested their marriage in ways they never could have anticipated, but the challenges had also revealed depths of love and commitment that surprised even them. Behind them, in the second car, the children were engaged in animated conversation with their protection officers. Charlotte was pointing out landmarks she recognized, while George was quietly observing the increased security presence, his young mind processing the significance of what was happening. Louis was bouncing in his seat, excited about the prospect of seeing his grandfather, King Charles, who had also been dealing with his own health challenges. The media presence became apparent as they drew closer to the castle. Photographers with telephoto lenses were positioned at strategic points along the route, their equipment glinting in the morning sun. Television crews were setting up their equipment, and reporters were already broadcasting live updates about the anticipated arrival of the Wales family. The world's attention was focused on this one stretch of English countryside, all waiting to catch a glimpse of Kate's return to public life. As they passed through the long walk, the magnificent avenue that leads to Windsor Castle, Kate felt a familiar surge of emotion. This approach to the castle never failed to move her, but today it felt different. Today it felt like coming home after a long and difficult journey. The ancient trees that lined the walkway seemed to stand as silent sentinels, witnesses to centuries of royal comings and goings, offering their strength and permanence in a world that often felt uncertain. The security briefing that morning had been more detailed than usual. The palace was acutely aware that this appearance would generate intense global interest, and every precaution had been taken to ensure the family's safety while allowing the public the glimpse they were so eager for. The route to St. George's Chapel had been carefully planned to provide the best photographic opportunities while maintaining appropriate security protocols. Inside the car, Kate reviewed once more the mental notes she had prepared for the inevitable interactions that lay ahead. She would need to acknowledge the well-wishers, possibly stop to speak with some of the gathered crowds, and certainly pose for the traditional photographs with other members of the royal family. Each interaction would be brief, but meaningful, requiring her to project strength and warmth simultaneously. The children had been prepared for what to expect, but Kate knew that the reality of the intense attention would still be overwhelming for them. Charlotte, in particular, was old enough to understand the significance of the day, but young enough to feel nervous about the cameras and crowds. The family had practiced their walk to the chapel, timing their pace and discussing where they would sit and what the service would involve. As Windsor Castle came into full view, its imposing presence dominated the horizon. The round tower flew the royal standard, indicating that King Charles was in residence and would be joining them for the service. This detail provided Kate with additional comfort. Knowing that the whole family would be together on this important day felt right, especially given the health challenges that both she and the king had faced in recent months. The car began to slow as they approached the final checkpoint before entering the castle grounds proper. Kate could see other members of the royal family already arriving, their cars proceeding in the careful order that protocol demanded. Princess Anne was stepping out of her vehicle with her characteristic no-nonsense efficiency, while the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh were greeting members of the clergy who had gathered to welcome the royal party. The moment Kate had been both anticipating and dreading was almost upon them. In just a few minutes, she would step out of the protective cocoon of the royal car and into the full glare of public attention. Every muscle in her body felt tense with anticipation, but her mind was clear and focused. She had a job to do, a role to fulfill, and a message to send to the millions of people who had supported her through her darkest days. William squeezed her hand one final time as their car drew to a stop outside St. George's Chapel. Through the window, Kate could see the gathered crowds, the photographers, the clergy waiting to greet them, and the other members of the royal family who had already taken their positions. The noise from outside was a gentle murmur of excitement and anticipation, punctuated by the clicking of camera shutters that had already begun capturing their arrival. The door handle seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds as William reached for it, ready to step out first and then assist Kate from the car. This was royal protocol at its most formal, each movement choreographed and meaningful. But beyond the ceremony and tradition lay something much more human and real. This was a family stepping back into public life after a period of private struggle, ready to serve their country and their people despite the personal challenges they had faced. The protection officers took their positions around the car, their eyes scanning the crowd for any potential issues while remaining as unobtrusive as possible. The atmosphere was one of celebration and welcome rather than concern, but their training demanded constant vigilance. The children's car had pulled up behind theirs, and Kate could hear their excited chatter as they prepared to join their parents for the short walk to the chapel entrance. As William opened the car door and stepped onto the gravel path that led to St. George's Chapel, a cheer went up from the gathered crowds. The sound was warm and welcoming, filled with genuine affection and relief. These were people who had followed Kate's story, who had worried about her health, who had celebrated her triumphs, and shared her struggles from afar. Their presence here today was a testament to the deep connection between the royal family and the British people. Kate took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and prepared to step into the sunshine of Easter morning at Windsor Castle. The next few hours would test every lesson she had learned about royal duty, personal strength, and public service. But as she heard the children laughing behind her and felt William's steady presence beside her, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them with the grace and dignity that her role demanded. The door was open, the world was waiting, and the Easter celebration that would define a new chapter in the royal story was about to begin. The moment Kate's feet touched the gravel path outside St. George's Chapel, the world seemed to hold its breath. After months of speculation, concern, and endless media coverage about her health and whereabouts, here she was, stepping gracefully from the royal car with a smile that radiated both warmth and determination. The assembled crowd erupted in spontaneous applause, their relief and joy palpable in the crisp Easter morning air. William moved to her side with practiced ease, offering his arm in a gesture that was both protective and supportive. The months of uncertainty had strengthened their partnership in ways that were immediately visible to anyone watching. There was an unspoken communication between them, a synchronization that spoke of shared trials and mutual support. As they began their walk toward the chapel entrance, every step seemed to convey a message of resilience and unity. The children emerged from their car with the natural exuberance of youth, but even they seemed to sense the significance of the moment. Charlotte walked with unusual poise for her age, her hands smoothing down her dress as she had seen her mother do countless times. George, tall for his 11 years, maintained the serious expression he was developing as he grew into his understanding of his future role. Louis bounced slightly as he walked, his excitement barely contained, providing a delightful contrast to the formal nature of the occasion. The photographers positioned behind barriers along the route worked frantically to capture every angle of this historic return. Their camera shutters created a constant symphony of clicking sounds, but the royal family moved with practiced grace, seemingly unaffected by the intense documentation of their every step. Kate's training in royal protocol served her well as she naturally found the perfect pace that allowed for good photographs while maintaining the dignity appropriate for approaching a house of worship. Members of the clergy stood waiting at the chapel entrance, their ceremonial robes adding solemnity to the occasion. The Dean of Windsor stepped forward to greet the family, his face reflecting genuine warmth and perhaps relief at seeing Kate looking so well after the challenges of recent months. The brief conversations that took place during these formal greetings were quiet and personal, away from the cameras, allowing for moments of human connection amid the public spectacle. Other members of the royal family were also making their way into the chapel, each arrival carefully timed according to protocol. Princess, and known for her punctuality and no-nonsense approach to royal duties, had arrived precisely on schedule and was already engaged in conversation with local church officials. The Earl and Countess of Wessex moved through their own greetings with practiced ease, their presence adding to the sense that this was truly a family gathering despite its very public nature. Inside the chapel, the atmosphere was one of quiet anticipation. St. George's Chapel, with its soaring Gothic architecture and rich history, provided a magnificent backdrop for the Easter service. The ancient stones seemed to absorb the whispered conversations and rustle of formal clothing as the congregation settled into their seats. Sunlight streamed through the magnificent stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the stone floors and creating an atmosphere of sacred beauty. King Charles arrived with Queen Camilla, and the sight of the monarch moving with careful but determined steps provided its own moment of significance. Like Kate, he had faced his own health challenges in recent months, and his presence at the service alongside his daughter-in-law created a powerful image of the royal family's resilience. The brief interaction between Charles and Kate as they greeted each other was watched closely by those present, their warm exchange speaking volumes about the support they had provided each other during difficult times. The service itself was deeply moving, with traditional Easter hymns filling the ancient chapel with voices raised in celebration of renewal and hope. Kate's voice could be heard joining in the familiar songs, her participation wholehearted and genuine. The children sang along with varying degrees of enthusiasm, Lewis occasionally needing gentle reminders to focus on the proceedings rather than the fascinating architectural details that surrounded him. The Archbishop's sermon seemed particularly relevant to the circumstances, focusing on themes of resurrection, renewal, and the strength found in faith during challenging times. While he made no direct reference to the personal struggles faced by members of the royal family, his words seemed to resonate deeply with many in the congregation. Kate listened intently, her expression thoughtful and engaged, occasionally sharing knowing glances with William during particularly meaningful passages. During the prayers for those facing illness and adversity, there was a palpable sense of connection throughout the chapel. Many in the congregation were undoubtedly thinking of their own struggles, their own loved ones facing challenges, and finding comfort in the shared experience of worship and community. Kate's presence made these prayers feel particularly poignant, her very attendance serving as a testament to the power of healing and hope. The children's behavior throughout the service was exemplary, a credit to their upbringing and their understanding of the importance of the occasion. Charlotte sat with perfect posture, following along in the service book with careful attention. George maintained his serious demeanor while occasionally keeping a watchful eye on his younger brother. Lewis, despite his youth, seemed to understand that this was a special occasion requiring his best behavior, though his natural curiosity about his surroundings remained charmingly evident. As the service drew toward its conclusion, there was a sense among those present that they had witnessed something significant. This was more than just another royal engagement or religious service. It was a moment of triumph over adversity, a celebration of family strength, and a demonstration of the enduring power of duty and service even in the face of personal challenges. The closing hymn, "Crown Him with Many Crowns," seemed to take on additional meaning as voices throughout the chapel joined in the traditional Easter celebration. Kate's voice was clear and strong as she sang the familiar words, her participation serving as yet another signal that she had returned not just to public life, but to full engagement with her role and responsibilities. As the final notes of the organ faded away and the formal conclusion of the service approached, there was a sense of anticipation about what would come next. The congregation knew that the family would need to exit the chapel and face the waiting crowds and cameras once more. But there's also an understanding that something important had been accomplished within these ancient walls, something that went beyond mere protocol or public appearance. The royal family began to make their way toward the chapel exit, their movements once again carefully choreographed, but feeling natural and relaxed. Kate walked with confidence, her hand occasionally touching William's arm in small gestures of connection and support. The children followed with the easy grace that was becoming their trademark, comfortable in their roles, but still authentically themselves. As they approached the chapel doors and the bright Easter sunshine beyond, Kate took a moment to look back at the magnificent interior one final time. This place had witnessed countless royal ceremonies over the centuries, but today it had provided the perfect setting for her return to public life. The service had been everything she had hoped for and more, providing both the spiritual renewal she sought and the public platform she needed to show the world that she was ready to resume her duties with full commitment. As the chapel doors opened to reveal the bright Easter sunshine, Kate felt a surge of energy that had been building throughout the service. The spiritual renewal she had experienced inside St. George's Chapel seemed to radiate from within, giving her the strength and confidence she needed for what came next. The waiting crowd had grown during the service, with people arriving throughout the morning hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal family's emergence from their Easter worship. The first person Kate noticed was an elderly woman in the front row of the crowd, tears streaming down her face as she waved a small Union Jack flag. The woman's expression of pure joy and relief was so genuine that Kate felt her own eyes begin to well up with tears. This was why she had pushed herself to be here today, why she had insisted on returning to public duties despite the advice of some to wait longer. These people, her people, had supported her through the darkest months with their letters, their prayers, and their unwavering loyalty. William guided the family toward a small receiving line that had been set up to allow them to greet local dignitaries and church officials. But Kate's attention was drawn repeatedly to the crowd beyond the barriers, where hundreds of people stood waiting patiently for any acknowledgement, any sign that their support had been appreciated. She made a decision in that moment that would define the rest of the day and send a powerful message about her approach to royal duty. Breaking slightly from protocol, Kate approached the barriers where the crowd was waiting. The security team immediately adjusted their positions, their training allowing them to adapt quickly to any change in the planned schedule. William followed without hesitation, understanding instinctively what his wife needed to do and supporting her choice completely. The children, well versed in walkabouts from previous public appearances, fell in a step behind their parents with practiced ease. The reaction from the crowd was immediate and overwhelming. Cheers erupted from every direction as people realized that Kate was coming to meet them personally. Hands reached out offering flowers, cards, and small gifts that had been brought in hope of this exact moment. Kate moved along the barrier with genuine warmth, stopping to speak with person after person, accepting bouquets, and listening to whispered words of support and encouragement. One young mother pushed forward to the barrier holding her infant daughter, explaining through tears that she had brought the baby to be blessed by meeting the princess. Kate's interaction with the child was tender and natural, her experience as a mother evident in the gentle way she spoke to both baby and mother. The moment was captured by dozens of cameras, but Kate's focus remained entirely on the people before her, treating each interaction as the precious gift it was. An elderly veteran, his chest decorated with medals from decades of service, stood straighter as Kate approached his section of the barrier. Their conversation was brief, but meaningful, with Kate thanking him for his service and listening carefully as he shared his admiration for her courage in facing her health challenges. The parallel between his military service and her royal duty was not lost on either of them, creating a moment of deep mutual respect. Children in the crowd were particularly excited to see the young princes and princess calling out their names and waving enthusiastically. Charlotte responded with the poise that was becoming her trademark, while George maintained his more reserved but friendly demeanor. Louis, unable to contain his natural exuberance, waved back with both hands, drawing laughter and additional cheers from the delighted crowd. The walkabout continued for nearly 20 minutes, far longer than originally planned, but Kate seemed to draw energy from each interaction rather than growing tired. Her complexion remained bright, her smile genuine, and her engagement complete. This was a woman who had found her way back to the work that gave her life meaning, and every person she met seemed to contribute to her visible renewal. William watched his wife with a mixture of pride and protectiveness, staying close enough to provide support if needed, while allowing her the space to connect with people in her own way. The months of worry and uncertainty seemed to melt away as he witnessed Kate's natural gift for this type of public interaction. This was the woman he had fallen in love with, the person who had won over not just him, but an entire nation with her genuine warmth and dedication. Media representatives positioned around the area worked frantically to capture every moment of this unexpected extended appearance. Royal correspondents, who had spent months speculating about Kate's condition and future role, found themselves witnessing a masterclass in royal engagement. Her ease with the crowd, her obvious pleasure in the interactions, and her glowing appearance provided powerful visuals that would dominate news coverage for days to come. As the walkabout began to wind down, Kate made one final stop that would prove to be the most significant of the day. A group of cancer survivors had positioned themselves at the far end of the crowd, holding a banner that read, "Thank you for your courage, Catherine." When Kate spotted the banner and understood its significance, she made her way directly to them, breaking into a wide smile that seemed to illuminate her entire face. The conversation that followed was deeply personal despite taking place in full view of cameras and crowds. The group members spoke quietly with Kate about their own experiences, their shared understanding of the challenges she had faced, and their admiration for her decision to return to public life. Kate listened intently to each person, her responses thoughtful and heartfelt. When one woman began to cry while describing her own treatment experience, Kate reached through the barrier to hold her hand, creating an image of compassion and connection that would become iconic. The emotional impact of this final interaction seemed to affect everyone present, from the participants themselves to the observers who witnessed it. There was something profoundly moving about seeing people who had faced similar challenges coming together in mutual support and understanding. Kate's willingness to engage so openly with fellow cancer survivors spoke volumes about her character and her approach to using her platform for meaningful connection. As the royal family finally began to move away from the crowd and toward their waiting cars, the atmosphere remained jubilant. The spontaneous walkabout had transformed what could have been a simple photo opportunity into something much more meaningful. Kate had not just returned to public life. She had demonstrated that her experience with illness had deepened rather than diminished her capacity for empathy and connection. The children handled the extended public appearance with remarkable grace, their natural personalities shining through despite the formal nature of the occasion. Their comfort with the crowds and cameras spoke well of their upbringing and their gradual preparation for their future roles. But more importantly, they seemed genuinely happy to see their mother in her element once again, engaging with people and fulfilling the role that brought her such obvious satisfaction. As they reached their car, Kate turned back toward the crowd one final time, raising her hand in a farewell wave that was met with enthusiastic cheers and applause. The sound followed them as they settled into their vehicle, a reminder of the warmth and support that surrounded them. The return journey to Adelaide Cottage would be quiet and reflective, allowing the family time to process what had been an emotionally significant morning. The Easter service and walkabout had accomplished everything Kate had hoped for and more. She had shown the world that she was healthy, engaged, and ready to resume her royal duties. More importantly, she had reminded herself of why this work mattered, why the connection with people was worth the challenges that came with public life. The morning had been a triumph not just of royal protocol, but of human resilience and the power of service to heal both those who serve and those who are served. The royal car pulled away from Windsor Castle as the church bells continued to ring across the countryside, their bronze voices carrying the news of Easter celebration to villages and towns throughout the region. Inside the vehicle, the Wales family sat in contemplative silence for the first few minutes of their journey home, each processing the magnitude of what had just occurred in their own way. The morning had exceeded every expectation, transforming what could have been a careful, controlled return to public life into something far more meaningful and authentic. Kate's hands rested gently in her lap, still holding several of the flowers that had been pressed into them by well-wishers. The sweet scent of spring blooms filled the car, a natural perfume that seemed to capture the essence of renewal and hope that had characterized the entire morning. She could still feel the warmth of the hand she had shaken, still hear the voices of the people who had shared their stories and their support with such generosity and openness. William reached over to take her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture that had become their private signal of solidarity. The pressure of his touch communicated what words could not express in front of the children. Pride, relief, love, and gratitude all flowed between them in that simple connection. The months of uncertainty and fear seemed to belong to another lifetime, replaced now by a renewed sense of purpose and possibility. From the back seat, Louis broke the thoughtful silence with typical 6-year-old directness. "Mummy, why were all those people crying when they saw you?" His innocent question hung in the air, highlighting the profound emotional impact that Kate's appearance had generated among the crowds. Charlotte and George turned their attention to their parents, equally curious about the intensity of the reactions they had witnessed. Kate turned to face her youngest son, considering how to explain the complex emotions they had encountered in terms that would make sense to a child. "Sometimes people cry when they're very happy, darling," she began, her voice gentle and thoughtful. "Those people were happy because they were worried about me, and they were relieved to see that I'm feeling better now. They wanted to show me that they cared about our family." George, with the wisdom of his 11 years and growing understanding of his family's unique position, added his own perspective. "It's like when people write us letters when something bad happens. They want us to know they're thinking about us." His insight pleased his parents, demonstrating that he was developing the emotional intelligence that would serve him well in his future role. Charlotte, ever perceptive about human behavior, observed the lady with the baby looked like Granny when she's really happy about something, like when we surprise her with something special. Her comparison to their grandmother's expressions of joy showed how carefully she observed the adults around her and how she was learning to read emotional cues. As they drove through the English countryside, passing fields dotted with sheep and hedgerows beginning to show their spring growth, Kate reflected on how different this journey felt from their morning trip to Windsor. Then, her stomach had been tight with nervous energy and uncertainty about how the public would receive her return. Now, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction and connection that reminded her why she had fallen in love with royal service in the first place. The landscape outside the car windows seemed more vivid somehow, the colors more intense, the beauty more apparent. It was as if the emotional release of the morning had cleared away months of worry and anxiety, allowing her to see her world with fresh eyes. The rolling hills and ancient villages they passed represented not just the geography of her adopted country, but the people she served, the communities that had supported her, and the future she was helping to build for her children. Back at Adelaide Cottage, the family home that had become their refuge during the most challenging months, preparations were underway for a quiet Easter celebration. The staff had decorated the house with spring flowers and had prepared a traditional Easter lunch that would allow the family to continue their celebration in private. The contrast between the public pageantry of a morning and the intimate family time that awaited them perfectly captured the dual nature of their lives. As they approached their home, Kate noticed that even this familiar place looked different to her now. The cottage that had been a sanctuary during her treatment now felt like a launching pad for the next phase of her royal life. The rooms that had witnessed her struggles would now be the backdrop for planning her return to full royal duties, for preparing for the engagements and initiatives that lay ahead. The children tumbled out of the car with renewed energy, eager to begin their Easter egg hunt and to share their morning's experiences with their protection officers and household staff. Their chatter filled the air as they recounted moments from the walkabout, imitating the voices of people they had met and laughing about Louis's enthusiastic waving that had delighted the crowds. Inside the cottage, William and Kate found a quiet moment together in the sitting room while the children went to change out of their formal clothes. The silence between them was comfortable and full of understanding. They had navigated one of their most challenging periods and had emerged stronger, both as individuals and as a couple. The morning had proven to both of them that Kate was ready to return to public life, but, more importantly, that she wanted to. Kate walked to the window that overlooked their private garden, where daffodils were blooming in cheerful yellow clusters. The sight reminded her of the flowers she had received that morning, of the hope and renewal they symbolized, and of the cycle of seasons that had carried her through her darkest period and into this bright new chapter. She had learned to appreciate these simple beauties in new ways, to find strength in ordinary moments and joy in everyday blessings. William joined her at the window, wrapping his arms around her from behind in a gesture of protection and love that had sustained them both through recent months. "You are magnificent today," he whispered into her hair, his voice thick with emotion. "Watching you with those people, seeing you come alive again in that way, it reminded me of why I fell in love with you all those years ago." Kate leaned back against his chest, drawing strength from his warmth and steadiness. "I had forgotten how much I missed it," she admitted quietly. "The connection with people, the sense of purpose, feeling like I'm making a difference. Today reminded me that this work isn't just what I do, it's who I am." Her words carried the weight of months of uncertainty and the relief of rediscovered clarity about her role and her future. The Easter lunch that followed was a celebration in every sense of the word. The children shared stories from their morning, acting out conversations they had witnessed, and laughing about the number of photographs that had been taken. The menu included all their favorite dishes, from traditional roasted lamb to chocolate Easter eggs that had been carefully selected and wrapped by the household staff. As the afternoon wore on and the children settled into quiet Easter activities, Kate and William found themselves planning the weeks ahead. There were engagements to reschedule, causes to revisit, and new initiatives to consider. The calendar that had been cleared for months due to her treatment now began to fill again with meaningful work and important commitments. The evening found the family gathered in their sitting room, the children in their pajamas, and Kate finally changed out of her formal clothes into comfortable casual wear. The contrast from the morning's public formality could not have been greater, but both versions of their life felt authentic and important. They were a royal family with public duties and responsibilities, but they were also simply a family grateful to be healthy, together, and looking toward the future with hope. As Kate tucked the children into their beds that night, each one asked about the morning in their own way. George wanted to know when they would do another walkabout. Charlotte asked if the people would remember meeting them, and Louis simply said he had fun meeting all the nice people. Their questions and comments reminded Kate that this morning had been significant not just for her return to public life, but for their understanding of their family's role and their own future responsibilities. Looking back at the day as she prepared for bed herself, Kate realized that the Easter service at Windsor had been more than just a return to royal duties. It had been a transformation, a moment when months of private struggle had been transformed into public strength, when uncertainty had been replaced by clarity, and when the love and support of countless people had reminded her of the true meaning of service. The woman who went to sleep that night was the same person who had woken up that morning, but she was also fundamentally changed, ready to embrace her role with renewed energy and deeper understanding of its importance.